It's actually 5 a.m. I've been up for an hour, and this is TFL.
Things that you interact with in Max are very obviously interactable, especially our fuse box. Like it has these lightning bolts coming out of it. It's bright. It just begs to be looked at.
All right. And continuing where I left off last night.
You also do this in cameras, and so in Walking Dead, again, we wanted to keep a world consistent. We didn't want to just kind of have big arrows pointing at stuff to use it. We wanted to make sure that the player was just kind of very subtly guided to things. So these are a few screenshots from a puzzle in Walking Dead episode 3. And the story we wanted to tell was that someone is stealing drugs from your survival group. They've left this broken flashlight. Please figure out how they're doing this. And so the narrative was you find these broken shards, and then around the corner you see this X on the wall. It's like this like signal that whoever this perpetrator is has been messaging to somebody that they're taking the things from your survival camp and giving them away. But we wanted to make sure that you saw them in that order, because if you just kind of found the pink X without any information or context, you're probably just going to look at it and go, okay, well, that's weird, neat, okay. So we wanted to make sure it was tied to our broken flashlight, tied to our perpetrator. So we made sure that you have to look at the broken glass first before you even see the broken X, or the chalk X, rather. So the bottom screenshots here, they're actually the navigation cameras we had in the level, and the X is on this wall, the wall that's facing screen left. So you can actually see the X. We actually hide it from the player completely with our cameras to make sure that they're more enticed and more willing to click on the broken glass. So when they do, we actually played a cinematic, and that revealed the X. It actually showed Lee, the main character, himself, like making a mental connection between, okay, I just found the pieces of this flashlight, and now I'm finding this really suspicious mark. So it kind of preps the player with the narrative to say, hey, you should be thinking about these two objects together. These two objects you just found have a relationship. And we build that kind of with this narrative. We also build it with cameras. Every camera in that scene is moving up and to the left, every single one. And that's because we know when you go back to navigation camera on the bottom left here, we want you to go there. Like, now go into that corner, go look at that wall, and continue to move that way. And so we're always pushing the player, hey, make a connection between these two things, because there's a narrative there and it's part of the puzzle. If you don't highlight what you want your player to click on, you get something like this, which is a very classic adventure game pitfall called pixel hunting. This is a puzzle in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where you have to find a book on a shelf, and you have no clues of what that book looks like. You literally have to just click on the books or hover your cursor over the books until something happens. And at best, this is very frustrating. Your players just kind of brute force clicking around. They're not thinking about the connections between the objects that they're looking at. They're just kind of clicking mindlessly. At worst, your player doesn't see that this is a puzzle at all and skips it. So it's only important to message your clues, but also message your puzzle in general. So props aren't the only way, of course, to message your puzzles. I'm going to go back to Braid, because Braid also uses patterns a lot. There was a pattern in the hunt example that we had earlier that you understand, okay, I know how to solve this. I have a new mechanic in play now, but I still know how to solve, like, what the ultimate solution is to this section. And this is another example on Braid where there's two platforms kind of moving, and there's this one piece of geometry that's moving vertically, and it's stopping the horizontal platform, but the horizontal platform's needed to get across a bunch of horrible fiery spikes. So in the first level, it's really just about letting that happen. It's about letting that platform move over that danger and using it to get across the gap. But then in world, I think this is 4 or 5, the ring level, suddenly the vertical platform is moving a lot faster. And so you're like, okay, I've seen this before. I understand that there's this platform has to go above this vertical platform. But how do I do that? This one's moving much faster. Luckily, you have a mechanic that slows things down when it's near it. So the player is kind of building this relationship. Like, they're very gradually building a relationship of these things together. I also want to talk really briefly about chunking, which is a psychological, it's a process of taking information, chunking it, and putting it into larger units. Something that was a big touchstone at Telltale was we never put more than around 5 things that were part of a puzzle on screen ever. And it's because humans can only hold so much information. We really want them to make those relationships between the clues they're finding, so we don't want to just dump a bunch of things on them and have them find them, because that's just as bad as clicking a bunch of random books. Clicking a bunch of stuff just to click on it is just as mindless of a task. So we want players to be very thoughtful and think about what is next to each other and what they're seeing in a sequence, what's grouped together. So it's important. So our next big bullet point for when you build a puzzle, you have your goal, you've messaged your goal, you've created your challenge. The next important thing is giving the player feedback. You need to let the player know how they're doing as they play your puzzle. And you can do that by rewarding and encouraging your player when they're on the right track. And you can also do that by communicating to the player when they've hit a dead end. These are both very important things. So it can be really difficult for a player to know when or when not is a valid option to interact with something, especially in adventure games. You'll often get the, I can't use these things together. And it's not great. It means, OK, we didn't have the scope to give you an interaction with this. But it's still feedback. It's still telling you, hey, you're on the wrong track. There's like a dartboard full of axes and knives. And you're like, oh, obviously Max should do something with that. He's super violent. But it's not. So the game just says, like, hey, no, sorry. But it's important, otherwise the player might just kind of go down a rabbit hole. No pun intended. And then in Walking Dead, we actually solved this by kind of actually restricting the amount of verbs a player could even use. Lee has a whole inventory. He has, there's 2 items in his inventory right now. He normally can look at stuff. But when he sees a zombie, he only can shoot it. And that makes sense, because if you saw a zombie and you had a gun, that's probably what you're going to do. It's a lot of content and a lot of time and a lot of steps that a player has to go through to kind of look at a full verb option wheel and go, what if I look at the zombie? What if I use my clipboard on the zombie? It's a lot faster and it's a lot more meaningful in the moment to just say, you probably want to shoot this zombie. Lee's pretty afraid right now of this zombie. Then when you find out the zombie is dead, we give you back your verbs like examine, look at, because they're relevant again. I've gone from action mode, from I'm scared of something, to, OK, now it's time to figure out what's happening. It's time for me to sit and think and look at the scene and understand what's happening here. And then, another important thing to remember when building a puzzle is to be kind. Just be kind to your player. Again, it's a contract of challenging them, but then not making things impossible. Repetition isn't fun. Making a player replay something over and over again because they failed isn't fun. And checking your skill checks. And what I mean by that is, if you have a verb-based, like a more systemic verb-based game, you have a lot of physics in your game, the player's challenged to move through it, that's good. But make sure that those skill checks are informed. Make sure they're not making the player repeat a lot of things. I was just talking to a friend of mine. There's this Forsaken Fortress in Wind Waker, and I hated it. I stopped playing Wind Waker. I didn't play Wind Waker for a long time because I played this level, and it has a ton of skill checks where you can fall. And when you fall, you have to repeat the entire level over again. And to be clear, I love Wind Waker. Zelda's great. Thumbs up. But man, that killed it. And think of how good Wind Waker is, but just having to repeat those puzzles over and over again, they're puzzles. So you have a dominant solution. You've found the dominant strategy. You know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, but you can't execute it, that's extremely frustrating. And to go back to Portal again, they do a great job with this, because whenever you fail in Portal, they either put you back very close to where you failed, so you're kind of learning, OK, this was the last place I was before I screwed everything up. I can now think about that. So the deaths in Portal or the failures in Portal are also teaching the player, hey, you were right up to this point. So try again. You know, what you did was wrong, and now try a different solution.
Just noticed something I need to fix.
The last thing when building a puzzle is integrate your story into your puzzle. And that's why it's so important to have that macro chart, that progression flow of your game, because when you have your story mapped out and you'll understand where your story is in your puzzle, where it is in your game, you can always go there for inspiration. The picture on the left here is from a game called Quadrilateral Cowboy, where you're actually hacking. And when you're hacking in Quadrilateral Cowboy, you're moving through a level. You're actually getting like take your laptop out and hack and like open a door. And it's very integrated in the game. It's a part of the story. You feel like you're this secret agent hacker who's opening things. Whereas in BioShock, you're just playing Pipe Dream. If you played BioShock, it's not about playing Pipe Dream. So the hacking puzzles in that game are a lot weaker because they're not integrated in the story. There's kind of this weird mini game that happens. So always look at your story.
Should be.
And then remember the golden rule. Always be kind to your players. Let them, give them a challenge, but give them the materials they need to complete that challenge. If you ever watch Sherlock Holmes, it always cracks me up when people say, oh, you can follow along Sherlock Holmes and solve the crimes with him, because you can't. He has a ton of information that you don't have. He's just saying, well, didn't you notice that his hand has 4 calluses on it? He's a tennis player, and the specific shoe print we found is a Nike tennis boot. This is information you didn't have, and so when you make your players feel like Watson, just kind of staring at Sherlock, it doesn't feel good. So remember, puzzles are fun for the player, not the designer. Don't get super excited about feeling clever. Just make a good experience. So lastly, I want to talk about troubleshooting, because as I said, difficulty among other things, it's really difficult to get right. Even with all these tips, it's going to take a lot of iteration, a lot of considerations to get your puzzle to feel good and do exactly what you want it to do. And you do that with user testing. And you do that as much as you can. Seriously, you do that as much as you can. There's no excuse for not getting user testing. It's so important to capture as much of your tester's thinking process as possible, because that's going to really tell you if your difficulty levels are appropriate or not. There was a great postmortem for Myst in GDC 2013 that I definitely recommend checking out, because Robin Miller was talking about how even before Myst was a game, even before they were able to throw it on a hypercard stack and make it a thing, they were doing it D&D style. They would actually describe to the player, this is what you see.
Try that.
Can you solve this? And as you know, Myst is very open, and it is allowed to be that way because they did so much testing with, here is literally as open we can get. Here is a D&D role-playing game. Can you solve this puzzle? And then later in their testing process, when they did have something implemented, they actually would always test with 2 people. They'd usually test with couples. And that was because they like to talk to each other. So, obviously, puzzle games are very heady. We get in our own heads when we're solving them. But when we're solving with another person, we're talking a lot more about what we're thinking and about our thought processes. And it's a really great way to see what a player is thinking, and having them argue for a solution is going to give you a lot more information than them just kind of staring at the screen and blinking a lot. Oh, I missed that. But yeah, so always note where your players get stuck. And then, look at this. Next is coming like a self-check to examine why they're getting stuck. So if your player says that was too easy, which is very rare, but you'll get it, did you give them a chance to solve it themselves? Did you just feed them the answer? And if they think it's too easy, maybe you already taught that concept before. Maybe that mechanic was already really effectively tutorialized, and you're kind of getting repetitious. So look back at your chart and say, okay, maybe I don't need as much tutorialization. They might also mean that it was just lock and key. It was very obvious. There weren't enough steps between your lock and your key to find those things. There weren't enough variations in your verbs and applications. If you guys ever played Pokemon, they have the cut mechanic. And at first, you're like, oh, I can't break these bushes. I have to cut down these bushes. How do I do that? You learn cut, and you can cut down bushes, but it's all you can ever do. it never escalates to that. It's always just, there's no thinking anymore. It's just like, okay, I have to take my rat-a-tat and like cut another bush down, okay. It's not thinking, it's just lock and key. It never evolves past that door. So too hard, which is a lot more common. You'll get a lot more too hards. And you just ask yourself, like, did I give information to solve this puzzle? How long ago did I give that information ago? Because it might just be not relevant to the player anymore. And can they get back to it? Like, is it glossed forever, or can they reference that information again? And then, of course, is the goal clear to the player? And this is looking at your level layout, looking at your visuals, making sure your path is clear, all the stuff that a level designer does when just making things obvious goals. And then check your dials. Are there too many steps in your puzzle? This is very, very common. I see this all the time. People just put too many steps in their puzzles because, again, it feels clever, or they've been playing their own game like 1,000 times. They're like, well, obviously, these 100 steps, this like horrible Rube Goldberg machine equates to this puzzle being solved. But on first blush, a lot of players aren't going to get that. And again, check your mechanics. Are you teaching them well? Are you changing the context of a mechanic? And this is what I was talking about with consistency. It's great to make new applications of mechanics. It's great to change them. But if that new way is unintuitive or hasn't been tutorialized, the player's going to have a hard time with it. So your golden rules. Take a picture of this when it's done. It's going to come in as bullets. A good puzzle challenges the player without hand-holding or being unfair. Fun for the player, not the designer. Don't be Sherlock Holmes. Puzzles combine a game's theme and mechanics and rely on the consistency of each to make sense. Consistency is your friend in puzzles. And look at your puzzle in the context of the game as a whole to judge its difficulty. It's the best way to figure out if your puzzle's doing what it needs. There's one more. Watch others play your puzzle and check for assumptions you may have made. We're all different human beings. We're all different people. We're from different cultures. We all think differently, and that's the fun of puzzle design, is you really get to watch people think and watch people work through problems and learn new things. And that's my talk. This talk was really 2 hours long. So I encourage you guys to also take a picture of this slide and just check out some of these really great articles. Lots of rational level design stuff, some great GDC talks from past years, all good stuff. And then I think, how much time we got? Are we in 5? Yeah, I'll take like a couple of questions. Yeah, if anyone has questions, feel free to come up to the mics over there. And thank you, everybody.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on dynamic difficulty from the point of view of, I'm sure everybody in this room has hit a puzzle and literally walked away from the games. And I mean, I've done this many times.
Yes.
But there's kind of like two ways. Some games do kind of like, the voice comes on and gives you a hint. But some games do it too early. There's ones where you walk into a room and you're thinking, okay, I'm just going to, and they'll go, oh, look at this. And it's a bit too much of a giveaway. But I mean from the point of view of, are we able yet, really, to have a puzzle and you try something and it doesn't work, and you try something else and it doesn't work, and not just to give away a hint or there's the key, but to dynamically change the puzzle, because it's like you've detected that the person's tried 5 things and it hasn't worked, and we don't want them to give up. We want them to keep playing.
Yeah, so a lot of games have tried this. To hint systems, I think some hint systems are garbage. Some hint systems are just really bad because they do just tell you, go, there's the key, go do it, what are you doing, you idiot? And yeah, that's always bad because it's still that same problem of I'm still not letting the player solve it themselves. It's the designer kind of giving up on you. It's your teacher just saying, just copy my answers, just go. It's that same feeling. So I think there are good hint systems up there. Actually, Myst had a really good hint system. Not Myst, or Myst Uru. The third one. And it was really just because they wrote them well. They were very careful in their language. They were careful in how they gave them, and eventually they got pretty on the nose. But there were a lot of them, and granted that's a lot of content, but there was a lot to give them.
Okay.
I've also seen so what you're describing, I think of like a dynamic puzzle changing. I've also seen that in like Silent Hill. I think had that. And the problem I see with that is that you're suddenly, what Silent Hill did was they had easy, medium, hard, and when you played that game on those different difficulties, the puzzles actually changed. And they used the dials we talked about, like often the hard puzzles had more steps or more connections you had to make, but it's a lot of content because they literally made 3 puzzles for every one puzzle. So I think that's a big barrier, is just that amount of content you have to make. You're suddenly tripling your scope. Because puzzles are so tightly interwoven, it's tough to kind of it's tough to just kind of take away or put in steps to add difficulty. So
you think it's too much of a design, it would just be too much of a challenge for the creation of the game? I
think it's a great challenge to try. I think it's a good design challenge. I think the scope is where you're going to run into trouble. But maybe got a ton of money.
Thank you.
We have one more. I think we have 2 minutes left in this session, unless we want to break out to a panel. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on how it can be hard to teach somebody something during an intense moment. How it's probably easier when things are very calm and you have your own. But if you're doing an FPS or a more action game, how to teach the player, even though he's in an intense, or she is in an intense moment, if there's a lot of action going on, any advice on how to teach players things? If it's supposed to be a high-intensity game, how do you teach players or have puzzles in there?
Well, I think even in a high-intensity game, you are going to have points of low intensity. If your game's only high tension, it's just going to feel like you're getting hit all the time and you're just going to become numb. So there is definitely finding those points of low intensity and using those just to kind of bolster the player, to teach them those basics. It's great when you can say, hey, you learned some basics, and now you're in a more tense moment, your difficulties added through a timing element or something like that. But yeah, I think it's more just kind of making sure the player again has that tool set they need. They have that knowledge in there, and then when they're confronted with this stressful situation, you can ask them to do something like that. You can ask them to test what they know or challenge themselves in some way. But I think it's really that's how much more work you're going to have to do to really scaffold their knowledge and their skills. Does that answer your question?
So in generally, just try to avoid teaching players too much new stuff during intense moments, and then just have them apply that knowledge in a different way, rather.
Yeah, I think so, because your action, that's a new setting. I suddenly have a lot more things to think about. So that's all new information, new stuff. That's adding to the difficulty. So there's not really much more you need to do from there. You're already giving them something stressful to deal with.
Okay, thanks.
Is that it? What else? 2 watching. Oh my god. Oh. Gonna watch this.
JCPenney mystery sale.
Let's see. And I'm gonna add another variable here to all items, and we're gonna call it type interactive display name versus inventory display name.
Let's get to the news. According to the National Journal, former President George W. Bush frequently jokes about the Trump administration, saying, quote, "Makes me look pretty good, doesn't it?" Okay, but I wouldn't be too excited that this is what it takes to make you look good. Here, watch this. Now you look terrible again. Easy come, easy go. President Trump this morning denied there is chaos in the White House, tweeting, quote, "There is no chaos, only great energy." Well, if this president thing doesn't work out, he can always get a job writing fortune cookies.
Yep.
President Trump this morning tweeted about the low TV ratings for this year's Academy Awards, tweeting, quote, "Lowest rated Oscars in history. Problem is, we don't have stars anymore, except your president." Just kidding, of course. But yeah, Trump should have been at the Oscars. I mean, he is the shape of water. In an interview with the Washington Post, former Trump aide Sam Nunberg said that he has been subpoenaed by special counsel Robert Mueller, but is refusing to go, saying, quote, "Let him arrest me." And then, in an interview with everybody, Nunberg said, and I quote, "Trump may very well have done something during the election. Carter Page colluded with the Russians. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is a joke. And nobody hates Donald Trump more than me." Wow, apparently he believes the first step in Trump's infrastructure plan is to burn all the bridges. Look at that dude. Even his eyebrows said, "Screw this, we're out of here."
Hey, hey, did I hear my name?
Oh, hey, everybody, it's Sam Nunberg. Give it up for Sam Nunberg.
No, that's not really him. It can't be. No, that's just a skit.
How you doing, Sam?
Not good, Seth.
Yeah.
No.
I have to say, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, again, yesterday you called in, you appeared on multiple cable shows, you dared Robert Mueller to arrest you, you promised to rip up a subpoena, and then you said terrible thing about your former coworkers, including the president.
Yeah, and I am sorry, but, you know, we've all been there, Seth. You know when you go to a bar and say, "I'm just going to have one." Well, that was my plan last night. I'm just going to call into CNN. Then one CNN leads to an MSNBC, then that leads to another CNN, and the next thing you know, you're passed out on a city bike.
Oh, I see. So in this analogy, the talk show appearances were like drinks.
Yes, and I also had a lot of drinks.
Oh, gotcha.
And let me tell you, nothing is worse than when you wake up and you find a piece of paper in your pocket, and your first thought is maybe some nice lady gave me your number, but then you open up the paper, and it's a subpoena.
Yeah. I could see that being very jarring. Now, some are criticizing the news outlets for putting you on TV last night when it seemed as though you might not have your faculties about you.
Exactly. Yeah, at least at a bar, they say, "Hey, man, maybe you've had one too many." I mean, I'm a 36-year-old man who thought Donald Trump would make a good president. I can't be trusted to make my own decisions.
No, that's a good point.
How dare you, cable news?
Yeah,
How dare you?
You tell them.
Their fault. Look, in the end, I just went on a couple shows, said some things I shouldn't have said, and pissed off the FBI. You know, we've all been there.
No, we haven't.
Okay, boys will be boys.
No, that's not a good excuse.
Que sera, sera.
No.
Bon voyage.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. You're in big trouble. Sam Nunberg, everybody.
Look at this. I didn't actually think I'd get anything from that Google search. Oh, let's call it a caliper.
New York City is bracing for a nor'easter tomorrow that could bring up to 10 inches of snow. So just a heads up, it may disrupt subway service starting around 2 years ago. Scientists have discovered a new super colony of penguins after their manure was spotted from space. Said the penguins, "Thanks a lot, Carl."
This is just great. This is the best wiki page I've ever seen.
Carl. The penguin who eats Chipotle.
Oh my god. I'm just posting this on
Arnold
Facebook real
Schwarzenegger has
quick.
announced that he will star in a 6th Terminator film, which will begin production this fall. In this one, Arnold goes back in time to stop them from making the 5th Terminator film. The Fish and Wildlife Service announced recently that it will now consider all permits for importing elephant trophies from Africa, which is unsurprising considering Trump imports trophies from Eastern Europe.
Okay.
And finally, PETA sent a letter today to First Lady Melania Trump urging her to include vegan candy at this year's White House Easter egg roll. Oh, well, if you're worried about that, wait till you see what she did with the bunny.
Did they post the rest of their videos yet? No. Oh, okay.
You know, lately I've been hearing a lot of talk about Bitcoin. It's a risky investment with people gaining and losing huge amounts of money overnight. And hearing all this talk, it's got me to thinking, you know, I'm getting older. And sometimes I look around and I don't even recognize the world I'm living in anymore. Things are changing every day, and I gotta be honest, they're not always changing for the better. And sometimes I like to just sit back, take a moment to talk about how things were just a bit more simple back in my day. Back in my day, we were losing all our money by investing in Bitcoin malarkey. Back in my day, we were smart. We saved our money and stored it in solid, low-risk, secure investments like Beanie Babies. Back in my day, we didn't have a black superhero called the Black Panther. Nope.
Board. It's a
Back
board.
then, we had a black superhero named Steve Harvey.
Plank.
And his superpower was hosting 80%
Board.
of all the shows on television.
Board is the word I'm looking for.
Back in my day, we didn't have these fancy pants Apple AirPods. No, sir. Back in my day, if you wanted to buy something that you'd lose almost immediately, you had to eat at Chipotle. Back in my day, we didn't have no opioid epidemic. No, sir. Back in my day, if I said I was getting high on perks, it meant I was settling down for a night with a great book called Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky, because the hollowed out pages of that book is where I hid my Percocet. Back in my day, America wasn't winning the gold in curling. No, sir. The only curling we cared about was on the head of one Mr. Kenny G. Looked like 1,000 silky telephone cords. That's right, Rusty. My son was conceived to one of his albums. Everyone was. In fact, the G in Kenny G stands for Gotcha Pregnant. Kenny, gotcha pregnant. Back in my day, we didn't have audiobooks. No, sir. Back in my day, if I wanted to hear someone tell me a 3-hour story, I'd have to listen to a voicemail from my mom. And back then, we didn't have no podcast either. If you wanted to listen to two people arguing in a garage, you'd have to drop by your neighbor Hank's place, looking to borrow his leaf blower. And when you realized that him and his wife Marjorie were fighting, you'd be like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I can come back another time. And Hank would say, no, stay. You should hear this. Everyone should hear this. And Marjorie would say, it's not any of his business, Hank. And Hank would be like, no, I think we would all like to know why you've been so friendly with Kevin, the UPS guy. And Marjorie would say, maybe it's because he's nice to me and his breath doesn't always smell like clam chowder. And Hank would say, well, sorry for being on an all-soup diet. At least I'm open to trying new things. And then you'd say, I just came for the leaf blower. That was our podcast. Back in my day, we didn't have the president possibly getting impeached for colluding with the Ruskies. Quad swallow. Cod swallow. Back in my day, our presidents had integrity. Why, the only thing they might be impeached for was getting a teeny tiny bit of oral sex and then lying about it to Congress. And finally, back in my day, we weren't sitting around watching This Is Us on the old boob tube. No, sir. If you wanted to sit in front of the TV and cry your eyes out at something, you just watched that Sarah McLachlan ASPCA commercial. Oh, hush up, Rusty. You were not in that commercial. What? You have a clip? All right, let's see it. I take it back. You were in it. Goddamn. I'm sorry I had to do that, but sometimes a grape in the Gus is worth a 2 in the Gramps. This has been back in my day.
I guess I'll watch this.
You need new glasses.
I guess.
So why not have them delivered to your doorstep at glassesusa.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here with Ms. Oprah Winfrey. And now, before the break, we were talking about A Wrinkle in Time and your wonderful co-stars, Reese Witherspoon and Mindy Kaling, who are on tomorrow and the next day here. We're very happy to have them.
This is all basically pretty temporary.
That must be a fun group of people, the three of you hanging out together.
Oh, we had a hot time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was the most fun ever.
Now, you all have powers in this movie. Do you have individual powers, like in real life? Did you identify your own superpowers?
Those girls, the talkingest girls, when you come in, I hope you get a word in edgewise, because they're the talkingest women I've ever been around. They don't stop. Like in the morning,
I want
in the
to program
trailer,
this to be...
They know every pop culture person, event. anything that's going on. So they
I guess I
talk
can do it in the
constantly.
construction script.
You
Basically,
have
make
to
the
do them
name and
together, you won't
or
be able
the
to get away with it.
description
It's
just
true.
be basically
That's
a
all
list of
separated
attributes.
Okay, that's why you do that.
It's, so for now, I'm just putting something in there so it
I heard
looks
something
like it
that,
doesn't
like,
just
you actually
repeat the
have
word. I mean, it's just
an odd
superficial
phobia
for
that
now.
I did not know about. I just found out about is that you gum chewing.
It's not a phobia. I mean,
Are you going to yell through this entire interview?
No. I know. I have some strong feelings.
I understand.
About it.
I understand. Yeah, you're eating the set right now. Okay. so it's not a phobia. You intensely dislike gum chewing.
I intensely dislike it.
Yes.
And it comes from my childhood.
Okay.
Yes, I grew up poor in Mississippi.
Okay.
And my grandmother, this is absolutely no hyperbole whatsoever. My grandmother used to try to save the gum. So she would literally, that country song about gum on the bedpost at night,
Yep.
she would put it on the bedpost, she would put it in the cabinet, she would put it everywhere around. And so as a child, I would bump into it and it would like rub up against me. And you know what it's like when you've taken it out of your mouth and it's been out for a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
It's bad. And so I was afraid of it. I was afraid of it.
Well, so what happens if, like, you're someplace and somebody walks in chewing gum? Like,
it's not good. I had it barred. It's barred at my offices. Nobody is allowed. But when I go out into the world, I can't bar it. I have
so
no.
what do you do?
I have
How
no
do you
powers
respond?
there.
Like,
I just ignore
does
it.
everybody you work with know this?
Everybody I work with knows this.
Wow.
Do not chew gum in front of me.
I have done several things with you. No one warned me. I mean, thank God.
No, it's a thing.
Can you imagine her being your boss and you're chewing gum and she freaks out
All right.
at you?
No
That
gum.
would suck.
No gum.
You know
Spit it out, everybody.
No, but this is what you realize too. Crews are chewing it all the time. So I
Right.
just ignore it. I pretend I don't see it. I keep moving.
Good.
Like actually,
That's healthy.
Reese
Yeah.
comes up to me on the set.
That's healthy,
and she's
he
going,
says.
"Scum," and she's trying it, and it's like that, and it's green. So I'm like, if it's colored, I just go crazy.
Did she know and was just pushing your buttons?
No, she didn't know, and so I said, I have a problem with it. She goes, what kind of problem? Really? And she's just showing it. And she's
There we
like,
go. This is why
"Oh,
I'm doing
that's
all
too
this,
bad."
so I can put
and then she just walks
and
off.
there.
Yeah.
Our one-handed sword.
Ask her about it.
I'm gonna ask her about it
Ask her,
tomorrow.
did she do it? Yeah, she absolutely
And-
did it.
One of the things that, as we were saying before the break, is that there are a lot of people out there who would like to see you be president of the United States, or at least run to be president of the United States.
I feel humbled and honored by that. It
Yeah.
just isn't something I've said this. I would know it. I mean, it would be, you know, everybody's saying it. I am very much in touch with my inner GPS, the voice. I'm in touch with God.
Yeah.
The voice of God.
In fact, you said, in People magazine, if I have this quote right.
So
you
she's
said,
batshit crazy.
God, if you think I'm supposed to run, you got to tell me, and it has to be so clear.
So clear, even
that
I
not
will-
even I can miss it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, have you had any signs at all?
Not one.
Really? Not even the people like tweeting or texting or the
No,
people cheering?
But
None of that
that's
is
a
a
different.
sign?
You know that those are all people outside you. You know what that is. If 1,000 people tell you to do something, but you don't feel it inside yourself, if 1,000 people say, "Oh, that looks good on you, girl," and you know it doesn't, or 10 people say it,
Yeah.
you know it doesn't. So no, I haven't.
Okay. Well, I guess that settles it.
Yeah.
No Oprah.
Oprah, Steven, what's up? Hey!
Hey! Hey, God, it's God, everybody. Give it up for the Lord.
Hey, everybody! I just spit out my
I'm
gum.
sorry about this, Oprah. I apologize. I apologize. God stops by every once in a while. He's a fan. Can I help you, Lord? I'm kind of in
I
the
would
middle of
not
talking
want
to
that shit
somebody
crazy
important.
lady as our
Oh, I
president.
know, Steven. I'm a huge fan.
That's great to hear. I'm a big fan of yours too, God. I really am.
Wow, Oprah knows who I am? I can't wait to tell Jesus. I'm gonna look so cool.
Now, God, I don't mean to hurry you along, but is there, something you'd like to tell Oprah?
Oh, yeah. I hear thou seekest a sign? Well, is this clear enough? Check it out.
She's dying. Oh my god.
Take your time. I've been here for eternity.
All I can say, God, is that run is now a part of my exercise routine. I can tell you that.
Well, how do I make this clearer, Oprah? Oh, I know. Oprah Winfrey 2020. Yes, she can.
God, no.
Well, there it is. You asked for it. There it is, Oprah. A big endorsement.
Okay, Lord, let me just say this to you. It's not something I've ever seen myself doing. It's not the kind of job that you can have without fully
Two-handed
devoting
flame-bladed
yourself to
sword.
100%.
Not really. Have you seen this White House? Come on.
He's got a point. He's got a point.
Come on, Oprah. I had all this merch printed up. I put it up on my wife's credit card. She's gonna kill me.
God, take it from me, Oprah. It's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay, and I'm sure you're gonna find someone that you are just inspired by in 2020.
Thanks, Oprah. Look, before I let you go, any chance you could get the Bible into your book club?
I'll work on that.
God, everybody. Thank you, Lord.
I guess
A Wrinkle in Time is
just
in theaters
leave it.
this Friday. Oprah Winfrey, everybody.
'cause that's what the name I came up with for this one is. So this one won't look as cool as the others. That's fine. Any more new late night uploaded? Yep. Nope. Okay. I guess. There's some other really cool shit that was just uploaded. Oh yeah, World Machine Day. Who's this? Oh, Unreal Engine. Everybody's using this damn Angel. Look at their frame rate. It's pretty bad. Too much fog. Oh my god. Okay. I'll listen to these guys.
Now, it should be broadcasting, okay? So, guys in the chat, let us know. Can you see us? Can you see Metatron's lovely, handsome face and my ugly one? All right? And they are giving us the thumbs up. We are live. Welcome, everyone, to this very special event. Not only is it a special event, it is high time, all right? It's taken too long for this to happen. A live stream chat between me and the Metatron. Are you hyped? I'm hyped. This is exciting. Okay. And of course, I'm here with the Metatron. Sir?
Yes, hello everyone, and Shad, thanks ever so for this opportunity. It's going to be fun.
An absolute pleasure. So, as by the title of this live stream might have alerted you, this is going to be a casual yet candid kind of discussion between two very awesome things, okay? Chivalry and Bushido. Of course, Metatron, he knows a lot more about Bushido than me, and I know a little bit about chivalry. And so we're going to talk, about that, some of the misconceptions, but also a bit of a comparison, okay? So I can see the chat alive and active. That's awesome. It is going to go too fast for us to be able to see. So the chat is mainly there for you guys to interact. But super chat should be enabled. Now, in regards to the super chat, Metatron and myself, we are going to answer some of the super chat at the end, if we can, because there should be a catalog of the super chat throughout the stream, and so we're going to try and look them up. We're not going to be able to answer them all, and if something fails at the end, we apologize. So basically, if you do want to do a super chat, that's not a guarantee that we'll be able to answer your question. So consider it a very generous donation, which it very much is. We thank you for that, but it's not a guarantee we'll be able to answer your question. So like I said, we'll try, and we'll try our best. But with all that technical jargon out of the way, let's get right into it. And I think the best place to start us off will be a brief summary. So Metatron, if you could give us a brief summary of Bushido, sir.
Okay, Bushido. It's simply put, Bushido is a code of conduct, a code of honor, and I'll get back to the meaning of that word because I think it's central to this discussion. And it's basically the ethics of the warrior caste, okay? Because of course that has to do with the Bushi, the warrior, the samurai. That's what I would say Bushido is.
So when you say ethics of the warrior caste, that is very interesting to me, because I'm always going to be approaching this from kind of a comparison from chivalry. And before I kind of jump on that comment about the ethics thing, I really should give a very brief summary of chivalry. Now, for you guys who want a more detailed explanation of these things, I'm sure Metatron has a video about Bushido on your channel, your YouTube channel.
Possibly, maybe I don't actually. I will make it. How about that?
Well, that's a good kickoff. I have a video on I have a video on chivalry that you can look up. But
I haven't imported my bows and
chivalry
stuff
can be
yet.
very misunderstood, but if you
Probably
really summarize it,
just to have them there.
chivalry is the qualities that a knight has that makes him a good knight or good at his job. And so whatever someone thought made a knight good at his job, which can be somewhat subjective and sometimes contradictory to what other people in societies thought, that was chivalry to them. Which kind of brings us to the ethics kind of discussion. When you say the ethics of the samurai, that's what I'm wondering about. Did those ethics sometimes contradict other interpretations of Bushido? Was it different, or was it more standardly understood across the board?
That is a very interesting question.
Like
Because here's the thing.
It's a fake
Bushido
bookshelf. This guy has the real
has
one.
had an organic growth through centuries. Okay, so if you think about it now, we have a very different concept of ethics and morality than we did 100 years back in the same city, in the same country.
My
so
goodness.
imagine, right?
Oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, please do.
You touch on that's a subject I've been thinking about heaps lately, and I'm kind of working my way up to do a full video on comparative morality and ethics, and what was good and just for someone in the past compared to now. And so I just really like that point that you mentioned. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Race and
Absolutely.
class,
So
probably.
basically, you do have these ideas, these concepts, but they are a cornucopia of ideas, meaning that there is so much variety. When you look at, for example, 15th century, 16th century, and I know that the word Bushido didn't exist back then, but that doesn't mean that the code didn't exist. It existed. In fact, if we look at, there are some examples, I'm not going to give a date now, but there are some examples that mention Mononofu no Michi, so the way of the warrior. It's basically the same concept. So it existed in the 16th century, but it's going to be different from what you would have in the 18th century, for example. So a full-on Sengoku Jidai samurai would have some concepts and some be different to what would be understood both in modern times and in Edo Jidai, if you will. That's
interesting. So with the period of the samurai heyday, was Bushido a bit different to where it began, and it kind of developed a bit more and could be different towards the end of the samurai?
Yeah, I would say that you can say that Bushido is different at every generation, to be honest. So, and even sometimes in some geographical areas there might be variation, or there hasn't been done a deep and organic study of this, but I would imagine that in some isolated areas of Japan in ancient times, maybe I shouldn't say ancient times, but in feudal times, they might have a different understanding of, perhaps slightly different understanding of what is
not really
proper.
Curious about. Well, actually, maybe I should use this as
now live. If you want to do a super chat, that's not a guarantee.
The word Bushido didn't exist back then, but that doesn't mean that the code didn't exist. it's a social class. So it's not just a matter of that's what the soldiers do, that's what the warriors do, but it's what the class of samurai are expected to do. Okay.
That's very interesting. And what's really standing out to me is the parallels already between Bushido and chivalry. Because with chivalry, very much it was a subjective thing that also evolved and changed. As to how much, well, we can't know definitively, but we do know it was subjective and changed. So just like how you said, it might have changed between generations. That's very much the case with chivalry as well.
Let me do something else first.
And as to the specific elements of the code of chivalry and the code of Bushido and stuff, I think we'll be able to ease our way into that by going right to the beginning. Because as I consider how these codes develop, because we're on two separate sides of the world, right? And yet two very comparable and similar codes developed independently, that's very intriguing. But we can kind of figure it out through just looking at the warrior code, the basic warrior code that any society that has soldiers, an army and stuff like that, there are certain basic qualities that I've come to learn that is very positive and good for you to instill in your soldiers. Two big ones, bravery, courage. You don't want them to retreat unless you want them to. And the next one, loyalty. Loyalty. Those two fundamental qualities.
Be right back. Hey. Oh, that's awesome. Let me see if I've been to Sweden. I think it's one of the very few places I have not been at all. In real life. So yeah, maybe I'll do the stones now. Oh wait, no, I wanted to do here so that I could just adjust these a bit. Visible. What? Quoi? So are you a fellow game dev? I gotta go to work. Yeah, no, I figure that's cool. A lot of people might be waking up, checking the YouTubes real quick before, you know, with their coffees and stuff. Watch the late shows from last night. That kind of thing. But you're in Sweden, so I guess it's not really what you'd be doing. Nope, still not visible. What the fuck?
Qualities, and those seems to like chivalry with all the different interpretations of chivalry. Those two qualities seem to be one of the almost. If I think about it, I might be able to find other qualities that were consistent between them, but at least those two in my mind at the moment are consistent through every single version of chivalry when chivalry even came about as a concept. Is that the same with Bushido?
Well, it is loosely analogous, meaning that there are some areas that are very similar, and even in a way, sometimes even the influence of religion and philosophies into the code that also is present in, because you know, later versions of Bushido are very much influenced by Confucianism, Buddhism, Shinto, etc. But definitely what you were saying, loyalty and courage to death and even self-sacrifice in a way, these are not only present in Bushido, but they're even present in the military codes of the ancient Romans. And I think it's not, you know, it's not strange, because these are essential qualities for an effective combatant.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And it's funny, you touched on something that I think will lead us into a significant difference between chivalry and Bushido when you said until death, and that's going to go into the concept of seppuku. But we're not there yet. I want to kind of bring us back a bit to the Genesis time, because the chivalry, one of the big kind of distinctions is that the first concept of chivalry actually wasn't a warrior code, because chivalry, it comes from the word chevalier, or which is a horseman. And so essentially chivalry is like the companion word in the same way that carpentry is the companion word for carpenter. And so chivalry is the companion word for chevalier, which is horseman. And so if you go to the root meaning of chivalry, it means horsemanship, just being able to ride a horse well. But when the role of a knight started to expand, where you needed to be more than just a good horseman to be a good you know, knight, you needed to have all these other positive qualities that made you good at your job. Chivalry started to take in those qualities as well. And of course, the two fundamental ones that I mentioned before, loyalty and courage, came in. And then so many other kind of qualities came in depending on society, also the type of person well, when I say type person, what I mean, what a person wanted their knights to, or how a person wanted their knights to act. It started to become almost, when I look at it, it almost seems like a type of coercion, control, to make sure these, you know, top tier class warriors stay in line and do what you want them to do. Is that similar with Bushido? Was it a form of control in some ways as well?
I would say absolutely, no, not even a shade of a doubt. And the thing is, when you were like before, you were asking me whether there are contradictions sometimes, and I would say yes, because the thing is, and this actually leads us back to what we mean by the word code of honor. Okay, so the real question, I think the fundamental question is, what is honor? How do we define honor? Because in the moment I say, if someone asks me, were the samurai honorable, I would say yes. But the problem is that when we say honorable, well, that word now, okay, is permeated by our modern culture and the expectations we have of the meaning of honorable, right? In fact, the other day I was actually taking part to a martial arts lesson, and one of the things one of the sensei said was, well, a samurai will never cut you or attack you from the back, and that's bull. Okay, that is what absolutely not. If you have a daimyo, which is a feudal lord, and your daimyo is telling you kill that man, okay, you've got, let's say you've got 4 samurai and a 5th samurai who belongs to an opposing faction, and for whatever reason there is a quarrel, and your lord says kill him, kire in Japanese, it means literally cut him. You know, all 5 samurai draw their sword and cut him into pieces.
No fair play there.
No fair play at all. Why? Because for a samurai, being honorable, prestige to his lord first and to himself as a result of that. Okay, so sometimes the way to achieve that might sound wrong from a current modern perspective, but not in the 16th century Japan. Okay, an era of violence and life to death combat. You know, it's a very different situation, I believe. And so yeah, I think that's that.
Well, when you said loyalty to their lord and also their own code, this is kind of maybe a comparable difference, because with chivalry, when it started to become more understood as the concept of chivalry, as we would kind of understand it, as qualities that made a knight really good at his job, there started to become a disconnect between social classes in how they viewed chivalry. And so for the lord, very much was about loyalty. You do what I say. When I command you, you do what I say. But for the peasantry class, they didn't necessarily want a knight that did everything the Lord said. They wanted a knight that would protect them no matter what, you know, the knight in shining armor. And yet for the clergy, they didn't necessarily want the knights to do everything, you know, to help the peasantry. They wanted the knights to be obedient to God's commands.
This is not an orthographic view, so it's like perspective is weird.
And so in all these different social classes, you have these different priorities of chivalry being pushed. And then you have like literature being produced, trying to say, this is what chivalry is. But what they're really saying is, this is what chivalry is according to me. And I'm writing this with the hopes to encourage knights to act in the way that I want them to act. And so you have this kind of disconnect in medieval literature between the writings of, say, Chrétien de Troyes, who he wrote a lot of like chivalric romances in the day, and his view of chivalry was very much like the lady fair, but also a lot of other weird stuff with him as well. But then you have, was it Geoffrey de Carney? It might have been, or Raymond Lull, one of those two guys. One of them was a member of the clergy as well, and he wrote a more idealized version of chivalry and things like that. And so it starts to be different.
Make them not visible.
And is that the same with Bushido, or was Bushido more strictly dictated by the lords? And
okay, we do need to underline that the peasant enjoyed a certain importance in the social class. Okay, so peasants were very important, but of course the Bushi class is superior to that. Okay, and we do have literature on the code of honor in Japan as well. The most famous, the Soul of Japan, Bushido, the Soul of Japan, by Nito Beinazo, which was written in the 1900s. But of course, that book, I'd like to underline, it was first written in English I believe in Pennsylvania, but don't quote me on that. But anyways, it was translated into Japanese many years after. So some people think that that man invented Bushido. Absolutely not true. He just wrote it down, okay? But again, as you say, he wrote it down according to his own perspective. But I think definitely it is about control, but I would say that the ruling class, the daimyo or even the shogun, depending on the era, they were the ones that controlled. Yeah, peasants were important, whatever you want, but you have to consider this. And I think this is one of the gruesome parts. Yes, the samurai part of Bushido was self-control, okay? It was integrity, it was sincerity. And yes, a samurai would not lie. Okay, that is what probably some did, of course.
Is that okay? So it wasn't universal, but that was kind of a common ideal. That was promoted.
Common ideal. Yeah, yeah, definitely. But again, let's say that you've got a group of samurai. Okay, and one thing that a samurai should not do, and I would imagine also in Sengoku Jidai, is killing innocent people for fun or killing innocent people for stealing money. Okay, you don't do that. However, let's say you've got a civilian innocent house the middle of nowhere, but it's in the way, and your daimyo tells you burn it to the ground. The samurai burn it to the ground, but now they're killing innocent people. It doesn't matter because they're doing it for their lord. So you see how things change, and I would say definitely the ruling class as you know, has the last word on it.
See, a really interesting comparison between Japan and Europe is in regards to how sieges were concluded in the medieval period, when an army would. And what's interesting about this, can you apply the concepts of chivalry to a whole army? Well, yes and no. It kind of depends, because the army is comprised somewhat of knights. The lords leading the army will usually be knights in their own right, and if they wouldn't kind of call themselves knight as the highest station, they would be no, I'm a count or a duke, but they're still knights on the side. And so because of that, they still have this chivalric ideal that they try and adhere to. And so when you need to take this city or castle, before a siege happens, they'll have this parley between the two. Yes. And the besieging force will usually say something to this effect: surrender now, save us the trouble of having to do all the work to take the city, okay, and we'll let everyone go free. We won't kill a single soul, but only if you surrender now. If you don't surrender now, things are going to start to get really ugly. And the interesting thing about that threat, the threat will have no weight at all unless you follow through with it and actually, actually do something with it. And then, the siege happens, and sometimes they're repelled because the defenders, they might not want to surrender because they might think they have good chances of repelling the attackers, which sometimes they did. So it was a big deal. But if they weren't able to fight off the attackers and the besiegers took the city, sometimes it can be 50 or not 50-50, but sometimes they were let free. But more often than not, like wholesale slaughter if that ultimatum was given. And these are knights who are supposed to defend the helpless and weak and stuff like that. And there's peasants, innocent people in the city. Because that was the case when the Crusaders took Jerusalem in the First Crusade. As soon as they took that city, they just wanton slaughter right throughout the whole thing.
Bloodbath,
but that wasn't necessarily them being particularly nasty against, the Middle East or whatever. That was just kind of almost a common practice with you resisted us, and because you forced us to commit our forces, and you also, we lost lives because of your stubbornness. This is your punishment. And I think they could have almost seen it as a type of just righteous punishment.
Yeah, there you go. Perspective of that century, as I was saying.
Yeah, and so that's the interesting thing, where people think of the concept of honor and nobility, and that's usually associated with righteousness. But when you try and look at it in context, you can see how a lot of actions that we would think are pretty darn vicious were considered honorable. Even in these concepts. So my next question there, moving, because you already started to touch on some of these things. What are some of the bigger misconceptions about Bushido in the modern day?
Okay, yeah, as I say, I think some of the things have been pushed pushed to represent some ideals that we have in our day and age. For example, if you've got a samurai, okay, and it's belonging to the opponent, to your opponent, to the foe, okay, and he's running away, all right, and he has dropped his weapon, so he's weaponless, okay, he's running away. You reach him, you kill him, no problem. So you have killed a person who is not wielding a weapon, no problem for him, it's not frowned upon. But on the other hand, a similar action really depends. Sometimes I think there is also this misunderstanding of the shinobi, okay, the ninja, the shinobi no mono, and the samurai, and how, some things the shinobi no mono would do, the samurai wouldn't. That is true, unless the samurai is a shinobi no mono, but you're going to get a bit complicated. Sometimes the line is a bit blurry. But let's say you've got, a shinobi no mono,
so
and you say a shinobi no mono, for example, would lie, and a samurai would rather not, if possible. True. Being cheating and that sort of thing. But a shinobi no mono, would a shinobi no mono kill you from behind if needed? Yes. Would a samurai do it? Absolutely. So here's the thing. It depends. You need a lot of context.
As it's fading out, I need to turn off the is fading out.
You need a heck of a lot of context to understand, right, whether something would be considered honorable or not. And again, it all goes back to, am I bringing wealth, land, and power to my lord? If the answer is yes, I am being honorable.
Awesome. For chivalry, if I was to try and say what the biggest misconception about chivalry is, I've already kind of answered it, but I'll just rephrase it in a more direct way. And is that people think that chivalry was an actual code with a list of specific things, a knight does this, a knight doesn't do that, a knight will always do this, and a knight will always do that, when it was actually a far more fluid thing. When it was just the things that made a knight good at his job. And if a knight did something particularly impressive and achieved that goal and showed him that he was a pretty good knight, people would say he is very chivalrous. That is a chivalrous knight. And indeed, if he did something that someone liked and conformed to how they viewed chivalry, so if a noble lady thought that a knight should always be courteous to the women and stuff like that, and a knight was courteous, she would say, well, he is very chivalrous. But there are some actions that a knight would do where one person would say that's chivalrous and another person would say it's not chivalrous because of those differences. And that ultimately comes back to what I was saying. There was never this codified list of specific things. But what's interesting is most of the items on the lists that you see in the codes of chivalry and stuff like that were incorporated in someone's view of chivalry in the past. So it's not wholly incorrect. It's just understanding that kind of context.
Yes, to jump in on that, how you said the concept of the word chivalry might change. The word is the same, but the expectations you have differ depending on your own morality, where you're from, when you are from, right? And it's a similar thing. I had a discussion on translation once, and we were trying to translate the word kami. The kami is normally translated as God. I personally don't like that translation because for the Shinto perspective, for example, yes, you have gods that are anthropomorphic, so they look like, humans. For example, Izanami and Izanagi. But you also have the spirit that resides in a tree can be a kami, and the force of nature can be a kami. So if you translate kami as God, the Western people will always imagine it as an anthropomorphic entity, because that's what we are used to think, right? Whereas I think it would be better to translate it as spirit or spirit of nature, force, whatever. So again, similar situation, honor, what do we expect? Code or ethics, according to what? It's very difficult to see these things without the matrix of filters that we have now in our own understanding. Very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, that honestly seems to be kind of like the thing you have to work to overcome. Where the more if you want to understand, because it's funny, I don't really consider myself a historian. I'm not too much into dates.
Me neither.
Yeah, I'm into themes. So the big three things for me is swords, castles, and knights. And so I want to know about them, the why, and the what, which leads me to learning about dates here and there. But the more I endeavor to try and understand it, the more I realize I have to take away the construct of the modern world I have in my head of morality, ethics, combats, also just the things that made people happy on so many levels to try and get a more accurate understanding of what things really were like and how things were done.
Yeah, you just reminded me of one thing, actually. Talking about how some things have been romanticized, okay? For example, I read once in a forum, and I did mention this on one of my videos, one guy who was saying the samurai would never use, for example, firearms because that would be dishonorable. Yeah, go tell that to Oda Nobunaga. You know, he frigging mass-produced the things, you know, when he got it from the Portuguese matchlock type of arquebus. Because think about it, you are in a time of war. Okay, you've got loads of Sengoku Jidai. You've got loads of daimyo. They're raising armies and they're killing each other. Okay, constantly. And you think the moment you can get your hands into an actual tactical advantage, you're gonna say no because that's not right. You know, sometimes we just romanticize it and dehumanize it. These are humans. They want to go back home, right? That's the thing.
Well, this is kind of leading me into another question, and how seriously do you because it's hard to, you can't really know definitively. Pet the cat here. But what impression do you receive when you look at Bushido as to how seriously the samurai adhered to it? Like, if it was a choice between death or and following Bushido, or if they broke one of the dictates of Bushido and they could save their own lives or get some other gain out of it, what choice would they more generally pick?
It's a very interesting question, and I would like to answer this way. Look at it this way. Is the samurai an honorable guy? Answer. Well, the samurai is a guy, first and foremost. Is it a good guy? Is it a bad guy? It depends individually on the person. Really I'm sure there were people who adhered to it to the letter, and probably even all the way back to the Nara period, possibly, or even before, Heian period. Were there people who got away with it because nobody was watching? Absolutely, I'm sure. I mean, it's like you have got good cops and bad cops. You've got good soldiers and bad soldiers, good teachers and bad teachers. So I would say that, to a certain extent, I would say a lot of samurai adhered to the code because they had to, okay? Because think about this. If the code wasn't strict, you could control them, as you said. And I think a similar thing for the knights, but a knight, so mounted, and a samurai are warriors who have access to training into the best weapons that technology can give you, can provide. So these guys are dangerous. Okay? You are training them. They are war machines in both scenarios. Okay, and you need to control them. So I'm sure that the rules and the codes were incredibly strict, and of course, sometimes, you know, the concept of seppuku, so killing yourself to not only regain the honor you have lost, but actually die with more honor than you had in the first place. I would imagine it was enforced. You don't do it, I'm going to slaughter your entire family. So you do it.
Now, seppuku is a really interesting concept that I have tried to understand for a long time, and I have this kind of a description that explains it. I could be completely wrong, so correct me on the way
I'm often wrong, so some people point out justifiably, so no problem.
Likewise. This is how I've kind of tried to understand, because I've often wondered, how does killing yourself give you honor or regain lost honor? Because there is another way to look at it, to think that's completely stupid. Or you could actually try and live and correct the mistake you did, actually contribute something more that if you kill yourself, you can't do that anymore. It's not there. And so, like, how does killing yourself regain honor? And I had this thought that seemed to make sense. So I'll throw it by you, where Bushido, one of the ways to look at it seems to be this concept of holding honor and loyalty in higher regard than your own life. These are the things that you dedicate your life towards, where that saying where, what is it? The essence of Bushido is realized in death. Is that the saying?
Yeah, that's a saying, yeah.
It's where embracing one's own death and being ready to die at any moment. And I tried to understand that. I wondered, is that concept in translation meaning that they are ready to die to show that they hold these ideals more important than their own life? And
absolutely.
And then if they break this code, supposedly, where people say you don't have honor, and you don't hold these ideals greater than your own life, it seems like the ultimate comeback to that accusation is like, really? You think I don't hold these ideals greater than my own life? Give me a knife and I'll show you.
It's an interesting point of view. Here's the thing. Bushido is a way to temper a violent life with serenity. And I know that that's going to sound strange considering the fact by cutting yourself, but please consider this thing. Seppuku or harakiri, it was used in two ways, mostly. To restore honor when you really messed up, not a little thing, something serious, okay? Like, for example, drawing your sword when you were in the palace in the presence of your lord, you don't do that, okay? Like it happened, for example, in the with the legend of the 47 Ronin. It's a famous one. There is this daimyo who does this. He got mad, he got pissed off at another daimyo. He got really mad, drew the sword, attacked him, and then he had to commit seppuku. I actually lived in that town, Ako, interestingly enough, in Japan. But anyways, this is one thing. The second thing is also a way to sentence someone to death. So sometimes a daimyo wanted to sentence someone to death, but since he was a samurai, do it through seppuku. So not all seppuku is a matter of honor. Sometimes it's a sentence to death. Okay, so how, like you were saying, instead of cutting yourself, can't you do something else? Probably, I would imagine, that's just my opinion, that when seppuku existed, you were in a situation where this person is very dangerous, as we have established, and he's not under our control, so he needs to be removed. And it's a very Japanese, so of course it's going to look strange through our eyes, but yeah, and also remember, the reason why you kill yourself in a incredibly painful way is because you show it's a deed of courage. You know, that's also that. There is also that.
See, it's interesting because as I try and scan, you know, the vague amount of knowledge that I've collected about chivalry, knights, medieval period in my head, it's hard for me to think of the answer as to what happens to a knight when they...
I need to concentrate a little bit here. So, does it happen when the window is open or when it's closed? It's when it's closed and I click away. When it's open, rather. Oh, either way. Supposed to be for this. I think I just need to put a check on that if there's a hit detected. So where did I put the re-show thing? Okay, fading out clicked. Okay, so yeah, when you mouse over a thing, if lookout fading out has been clicked, true, only if it was clicked when it was over a thing, though. Return value, okay. So I guess really what I need to do here is put if it's any one of these things that can be hit. Instead of this hit result thing. So if it goes to any of these things, okay. The hit actor. Because apparently it is hitting something. That's the problem. I have to make sure that what it's hitting. Don't wait for that shit. Nobody likes to wait. There we go. Oh, or wait. While it's fading in, there should be a similar check. Maybe just the same check. I'll just do fading in or out. Oops. And let's do it like 8 and so it fades in a little slower than it fades out. Or fades in faster than it fades out. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, because I want it to like just kind of fade out, but the fade in is just like a subtle, just blur kind of thing. More like a blend. Ciao. I need to stream at 5 a.m. more often. There's actually several more of you here than when I'm at the afternoon. Seems like it's still happening. Maybe. I guess it's like rare enough that if you're just behaving normally. Oh, see. Oh, why did it stay open between? It's pretty good. Oh, it didn't do it once. Hey, wait, it's not. Oh. I'm not clearing what the selected actor is. Okay. Let's see. When it's the same thing, so when it equals selected actor, what is this? Get bunched up here. Yeah, this. If it equals selected actor. So it's not clearing a selected actor. Oh, yeah. Well, it's setting a selected actor here. Let's try that. I wonder if that'll fix whatever that one little hiccup I was having too. It's weird that texture streaming pool is now giant at this main menu. Maybe I didn't build this map. Oh, I just realized I'm not gonna be able to like walk to get coffee today because of this stupid storm. It's gonna be like 4 to 8 inches here. Do I have a weather command available? Any of the bots? There you go. Light rain, 35. Wind is blowing from the east, 13 miles per hour, gusting to 20 miles per hour, and the current humidity. I love that shit. It's so detailed. Alright, so. I think I know what it is. If you click on another object without... if there's no gap in between, that's what that problem is. If there's just the slightest gap, it's registering. So that gate is actually happening. Oh, I know. If it equals a different actor, then I can break the gate. Let me just do that real quick before I forget. Hurry, while I know what to do. No, wait. Yeah, fading out breaks the gate. This is fading out. Bam. Breaks this gate. So right before this, I just need to do a branch for hit actor to equals selected actor. And just put a little branch on that. And I guess, yeah, a sequence here. Shit gets complicated when you're trying to do it right. The sequence will reset it and then do it so that if you switch which object you're looking at without the fade out transition to break the do once, then this will break the do once, and you can click onto another object and it will fade in again. Maybe I'll do a different thing for this instead of just doing the same function. Maybe for appearances I'll just have it not fade. I'll just change it. Maybe I just won't fade. I just won't do anything at all. I'll just be like, oh, it's a different actor, don't do anything. We'll have to see what happens here. Whoa, okay. So if it's the same actor, oh. False is opening the gate over and over again. Fuck. Do another do once here? Maybe just set a bool, say looking at different actor, and then when you click, it'll say, oh, well, are you looking at a different actor? Then we'll do stuff. Okay. So now we know whether or not we're looking at this actor. So, and then we probably want to just turn that off at some point too. Let us see how this works. So when we're looking at a different actor, we have it currently selected. God, this is a bit complicated now. Let me just do it in game. Let me think. Okay. I'm clicking and turning it off. Just this, basically. I just want to see, is it a different actor? Actually, I don't probably need to even do it where I'm doing the check right there. Currently. Where I presently am being able to assist you in that matter presently. Fight Club reference. Okay, so this actually should go elsewhere. And I probably don't need to make it a variable. Alright, and so when you click and hide, yeah, set selected actor. Oh, let's put that. This can just be kind of anywhere. Okay, this is just the sound. And for this, I want to say is this actor. Does this actor equal selected actor? Already doing that. True, false. False is going up there. Maybe there's some instance of it going down there. I mean, since this is on click, this is just happening in between. Yeah, so probably just have to put this check here as well. Hey, Frida. Okay. It's starting to come down a little bit more. Let me see what this says now. Light rain still, okay, alright, fine. Let's see, doesn't keep track of the changes of the weather. Alright, we're gonna put this. Alright, we're gonna say, are you the hit actor? If so, do this stuff. If not, if false, run the check again? I don't know if this will just create an unstable loop though. I guess if false, I'll just make sure selected actor is valid. Try that. I don't know if it's gonna die. Let's save everything. This whole thing is gonna be... It's quite the loop of logic there. I don't know. Nope. God. Maybe there's just a different problem there. Oh. Shit, that's not doing... Nope. quickly undo that. Back to the way it was. I think it's not here, it's like up here that I have to be doing this. Yeah, show, inspect, hide, inspect text. So hide, inspect text should only be done if actor equals selected actor. Try that. And here. I guess I actually don't need this here. Let me try that. I should probably jump around in one of the other areas just to show them off. Where did it go? No. The end of the sound actually has a little rustle to it. I don't know, like. See, it's not resetting the gate here. that's as I mouse over another object. I should just do a do once on the reset of the gate. I think that's all. I had it close before, I just backed up. Let me see, what's this problem here? Failed to reach, what? Third person. Let's just be like for a moment while it's loading the character in. Just do that. Maybe. No, it wouldn't be from here. It would be from overhead name to this. But that's the whole point of doing it. It's valid check. Oh, but none from here. Whatever. It's just like a one frame gap in registering something. So I'm just wondering if I want to keep what I just added, which was let me just see it real quickly, make sure I know what I'm doing. I think I know what I'm doing.
Grossly violated the concept of chivalry. And at this point in time, I actually can't think of any direct answers. That there's something I'll, be able to do further research on, because nothing really much is coming to mind. Like I can think of things, just state punishment. When someone does something bad, they are executed or they put on trial and stuff like that. Because what's interesting, there seems to be a lack of representation in the concept of chivalry in judicial proceedings. Yet chivalry appears in literature as a very firm concept that people understood, yet it wasn't incorporated into law, to my understanding at the moment. If anyone can correct me on that, I'd love to know. One of the other examples that I heard in a university, not a university, but a lecture on the subject, was that chivalry wasn't necessarily incorporated into law, but certain aspects were added to help promote chivalric ideals, like the tournament scene and stuff like that. They when they first started, they seemed to be pretty darn crazy and chaotic, and people were dying fairly easily and stuff. And they realized that we need to make some more conservative rules here, so people don't kill each other so easily and stuff like that. And the comparison was that type of restraint of when you fight, you show restraint upon yourself, is similar to one version of a way of looking at chivalry, which is kind of funny, because that actually contradicts another type of chivalry, which is to when someone gives you the slightest offense or gives you any slight at all, like that you act, you react, and you don't let
same for the samurai. Same for the samurai.
You do not let them slight your honor in any way. You are a knight. And so what's amazing about that is so contradictory to this other ideal of chivalry of restraint and mercy, which was also promoted. So those are two classic contradictory ideals.
And sorry to interrupt you, but there is a similar thing in Bushido. You've got the concept of compassion. But again, the same samurai who show compassion, and I'm sure sometimes some did, is the same guy who during a battle is going to remove your head. Okay, so not much compassion there. So again, this is why I say, are we talking about the period of peace? Are we talking then where concepts like the soul of the samurai resides in his sword? That's beautiful and all, but that's something that you can develop during a period of peace. During a period of war, things are going to be much more practical because people need to go back home, okay, and they need to win battles.
Exactly. That's what I've found as well, that when it comes to large-scale warfare and stuff like that, I have not yet come across any accounts where someone says, no, we should do this because this is the chivalric way to do. No, whenever I'm looking at medieval warfare, it's we need to do this because this will make us or help us win and help us kill the guys we're trying to fight. That was always the priority. Like defeating the enemy, and in terms of defeating them the right or honorable way, that kind of came second. You know, like we'll deal with that. You know, if we need to deal with it, let's focus on not getting killed.
Yes, also because history is written by the victor.
Absolutely.
So most likely you can also change some things, and perhaps a lot of this is why I think, again, I'm not a historian, but I think it's important when you look at history to look at it with an open mind, so that new discoveries might show a completely different thing, and you need to be ready to abandon old ideas you had if they are replaced by new data, whether it be archaeological or whether it be iconographic, because again, some of the things are what people want us to think.
And I think one of the places where the concept of, always showing mercy on your enemy actually didn't necessarily arise due to chivalry, but arose out of the general practice of ransom in the medieval period.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Getting money, and then and people thought, and when people saw, hey, this guy showed mercy on him, that must be because he wanted to show mercy, and they didn't realize no, it's because he wanted to ransom and get money for a result. But that was a very chivalric thing. That must be a kind of an idea of chivalry. But was ransom a thing in medieval Japan and the samurai and stuff?
I don't. I'm not actually sure about ransom. One thing I'm sure of is that during a battle, if you manage to kill off an officer or someone important, a noble, then that would gain you a lot of money. It could gain you land. It can gain you power. So, and as you know, I mean, that was often represented by the head.
I found that's real. That's like the polar opposite. It's like, and it's so interesting the perspective there, where in medieval Europe, the guys with the money, they have a high chance of living. Yeah, in medieval Japan, the guys with the money and position, they're the targets. Kill it because I want to get.
Oh yeah. If you see someone, and often they would make themselves recognizable. They would have these very elaborate helmets, and one of the two samurai sets I have is actually an officer set because it has very massive, maidates, or the decoration on the helmet. Oh yeah. In fact, the samurai loved to stand out on the battlefield because if you stand out, if you're rich and you can show off with your armor. Of course, when we reach Edo period, then this goes to an extreme, obviously. But even in Sengoku Jidai, you want to be able to be recognizable because you want your lord to notice you. And this is something, right? But of course, it also has the problem that your opponent will also recognize you. So it's one of those things. But I think it's a bit of a risk that they were willing to take.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
It's funny that there are so many similarities, yet there are key kind of differences within those similarities. But gee, we've had a great discussion so far. As we're wrapping up, are there any other distinct differences that you can think of between chivalry and Bushido?
I think distinctive difference is the unit, the soldier, the warrior that we are talking about, because if we extend the concept of knights, which happens a lot, to men-at-arms as well, which look exactly like knights depending on how wealthy they were, then of course I think there can be more similarities between the samurai and the knights. But if we mean now knights as mounted nobility, then some knights could be similar to what a daimyo actually is, because you might have a count, you might have a duke, even during the Battle of Agincourt, and the French there got the frigging aristocracy in the front, okay, all in full plate armor. But those wouldn't really be samurai, maybe they would be more similar to a daimyo, possibly, depending on what. And I think that's also one of the reasons why you were mentioning before, it's difficult to think of a knight in shining armor that does something unchivalrous and then gets killed because of it. But of course, because if it's a duke, you don't just cut the head of a duke, just like you know.
That's the thing. The higher you are in the noble kind of ladder, you get to determine what's chivalrous and what's not. And it's basically whatever the hell I feel like doing. And and of course, what's it like? It's hard to put our morality, on them. But it does seem like there were, some rulers really did do their best to do good according to how they understood it. But what's amazing, this is where I get a bit, stuck in the mud, because trying to look at historical figures, there are accounts of, say, Richard the Lionheart or Henry V or whatever, that portray them in such contrasting opposites. Like one is tyrannical, buffoonish, bloodthirsty tyrant to this noble, righteous, God-fearing, chivalrous knight and stuff of the same guy. And they're coming from and then how are you supposed to find? And it almost comes to the point where when it comes to the character of historical figures, it's almost too difficult to figure out sometimes. Gosh.
Yes, and it's similar again. If we go back, this is as old as mankind.
I mean, I guess I can't.
This idea of again, some people will think one, and it's difficult to discern what is what sometimes, what is true, which one is the real Lionheart, if you will, or what is the real whatever, Yoshimitsu or whatever,
Wait, this is only on when it's fading
ruler
out, that's why.
You're talking about, because again, morality changes. And actually Matt Easton, I'm mentioning Matt Easton a lot because I'm on a Scholar Gladiatoria marathon at the moment. I've been watching loads watching, and he made a video on Vikings and morality.
See, I watched that as well. I watched that as well, and it was really interesting. And if you guys don't know, a really intriguing full-fledged reply video was made by History with Hilbert. And it goes for almost an hour long. And he raises some really intriguing points. Very respectful, really good guy. And I've already actually given a shout-out to History with Hilbert. And he talks about, and he lists these pretty, reliable sources, seemingly, of the Anglo-Saxons doing very comparable things to the Brits, particularly slaves, and the Irish and stuff.
Is not
and that
at all.
There wasn't necessarily what I gained from that, and this is Hilbert didn't say this explicitly in his video, but what I seem to garner from his video is that it seems like the way that the Vikings waged war was actually pretty much the same with how everyone waged war in that period.
There we go.
They just won more often. Do it, be a bit better at it.
Interesting.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what was?
No, not at all. Do you want? I actually don't see the chat. I don't know if there are questions or something we might want to.
Yeah, we are wrapping up, and so I'm actually in the analytics here, trying to find the super chats if they have.
No idea. No idea.
There seems to be. I can click on a super chat here. This is from Pent Jacko, and it says 100. So if this is 100. Thank you. That's very true. But he says, sadly, I can't think of a worthy question, but I do want to thank you guys for this amazing live show. Made my birthday 2 times better.
Grazie.
Only 2 times.
That is awesome. That is a bless. Thank you.
And a way to make your birthday even better is cooking pasta. Just saying. I had to say that.
So what's your favorite pasta, Sir Metatron?
Spaghetti.
And that's the way it's said. Spaghetti.
Yeah, spaghetti.
How did I go? Did I do it right?
Almost.
It's funny, Australia, we love butchering other people's languages and cuisine and putting our own flavour on it and stuff. By the way, everyone, clearly we're kind of coming to the end of the live stream. We're starting to talk about food now. So I'll wrap up this part of it. So this has been a comparative discussion on chivalry and Bushido, and this has been awesome. Gosh.
Yeah, it was fun.
It has been great, and so now just some casual. We can just take it to a more casual notch. And I want to find the super chat because I feel I'm doing everyone a disservice. For everyone who did one that I can't do it. So I'll look for it. So while I look for it, I'm sure people want to know a little bit more about you, Sir Metatron. What is something that my viewers and perhaps even your viewers don't know about yourself?
Something that they don't know. Well, I would imagine there is plenty. I think they already know that I tend to have pasta for lunch and pizza for dinner. How stereotypical that is. Oh, maybe there is one thing. I have recently started to practice Katori Shintoryu, and I'm very happy with that. It's a style of Kenjutsu. Yeah, I've got the little thing now here. It's the Italian Association of Katori Shintoryu. I've started because some people were pointing out how, I have studied the samurai and I've studied history, and of course I speak the language. But I'm not very good when I do, martial arts things, and I decided, it's about time to take time and learn the proper stances and how to properly hold a Japanese sword. So that is one of the things, one of the news, I would say. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so here is a super chat that I'll just bring up.
Yes.
This is by Anzi Kazumi, and it's 500 PHP, and I don't know what currency PHP is, so, but still, thank you. Whatever you donate in super chat.
Thank you.
Why is Metatron so handsome? So, why are you so handsome, sir? Why?
It's probably because you need a new pair of glasses. But thank you.
Because you're Italian. He's Italian. They're rugged good looks. And he also says, but what about dragons? The most important question.
Oh, yeah.
And the answer to that is dragons don't care about looks. They'll burn your face off anyway. Kevin O'Neill asks, Metatron, when are you coming to the East Coast for decent pizza?
Now, I'll tell you, a lot of Italians can be really arrogant in terms of pizza. We are like, no, only our pizza is two pizza, any other pizza is disgusting. I don't agree with that. I've tried pizza in other countries. I've never tried pizza in the East. I'm sure I would enjoy it. I would still think Italian pizza is best, but I'm sure it's good. Good. Yeah.
My God, Australian pizza is an abomination, and I love it. Oh, I love the Australian pizza. I found the super chats, which is awesome.
Yes,
nice.
I
can go to some of the early ones. So Victor Eden asks, any chance of a new version of Cogent Roleplay? And so for those who don't know, and I'm pretty sure you don't know either, Cogent Roleplay is actually an RPG system that I developed with my brother, who is Jazza from the YouTube channel Draw with Jazza. You guys are not aware of that. And so we made a thing, and so any chance of a newer version of Cogent Roleplay? Not anytime soon, unfortunately. Both Jazz and myself have gotten really busy, and we just haven't been able to work on it. But what's your experience with tabletop pen and paper role-playing games? Because that's what Cogent is.
I've never mentioned this on my channel, but I love playing role-playing games in Dungeons and Dragons, and I started playing when I was 10, and I played for years. Okay, so I am a massive enthusiast as far as role-playing games are concerned. Love it.
Same. I love RPGs, but gee, it's been a while since I've been able to play. I mean, in fact, Tabletop Time. I haven't been able to play tabletop RPG since Tabletop Time, which is, I played Cogent Roleplay on a separate YouTube channel that my brother made called Tabletop Time. So if you go, guys, look it up. You can go check it out. So we have a super chat here by Emilio.
Is he Italian?
Emilio Camacho Eris.
Oh gosh.
I'm sorry. 5 euros. Both Bushido and Chivalry were good, but not every samurai and knight followed them truly. That's true. Yep. And in fact, we're able to explore that quite a lot.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Tensu Makadi. I think I should just pick a bad accent and try to I'll do it in a Scottish accent or something really bad. No, that's horrible. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will never do that again. Anyway, Tensu Makadi says, Matriculations! Noble ones.
Noble ones, yes.
Matriculations, noble ones. DVD Shaman, he had just donated $1. Thank you very much. And our €2 donation from Mad Number 4. Thank you. And last super chat for the live stream, which is a PHP of 125. I don't know what PHP is, but still thank you. And this is from Anzi Kazumi. Okay. This is for Shad. I plan on making a series using Cogent Roleplay and your fantasy rearmed ideas, and I hope to ask you for your blessing. You, my good friend, have my blessing. Absolutely. Go forward and make fantasy settings with giants and stuff and have fun and coach roleplay. Well done. It's been great. And that is the last super chat. And so I found where they were. We're able to go through them. And
Good.
I have to say, gosh, Metatron, thank you for joining.
No. Thank you kindly.
This has been awesome. And
Yeah, we should do this more often.
Oh yeah, like I want to try and make this a more kind of regular thing, because they're actually not that hard to do, but they're awesome. You get to chat, interact, and all that good stuff. And
yeah, you should come to my channel one day as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Next time I'll come over to your channel and we'll do that as well. One. And so we've had around 586 concurrent, viewers in this live stream, which has been awesome. Thank you for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
But alas, we need to bring it to a close, as heartbreaking and tragic as that is. Thank you for joining with us. Thank you for the Metatron. Metatron, is there anything that you would like to say as we saying?
Yes, the Metatron has spread his wings.
And on that note,
no, but thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Oh, absolutely. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope to see you again.
Hard to hit the
and until then,
sometimes.
Farewell.
I need to make tabs, select the nearest person now.
Greetings,
right now I have tabs in
everyone.
combat mode.
Today I'd like to make a video on the evolution of knightly armor.
I don't really like him that much, or his videos as much. Not nearly as much as Shad. He's cool and all, but it's just a little more, like, not as fun, I guess is the problem. Fire Arrows by Lindy Beige. Oh man, I just popped like the joint in my back that hurts. Ugh. Anyway, some music maybe, just some music. going to it before hitting that. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I was trying to check the radius of the light. This would be better. Which is intensity, really. Alright, let me address that issue now that I know what it is. The fucking button moves every time you press it. Goes from there to there to there to Alright, yeah, this one's bypassing that. Until this has at least been done once. So really, all of this could just go... Gets our own pawn. And we're gonna get. That's why I need to use it separately from those.
Yeah.
Lighting really messes with the skin colors. Like, she looks like, I mean, she looks white. She's a Minotaur, supposed to be dark. for a bit and just see how the sun rises higher. Stays up for longer. It's in fast mode, so you won't really notice that it goes like that. The moon goes a natural progression because it's an actual object. Should make it brighter and cover a wider area. More useful. Are those both the same fucking thing? No. Overhead name. It was so weird when I pressed S, it like wouldn't. It was just the weirdest little bug. I'm glad that's like gone. So that's the jungle continent, and this is the Ireland continent area, regions, zones, whatever. And it just came from the archipelago one, which was like over the mountain that way. So I might as well go down here. Nice clear view. I know my stream is kind of like a low quality because of bandwidth settings. I was checking out a video the other day. I was like, oh my god. The bit rate though, you can't tell. So the moonlight intensity is actually brighter when it's a full moon like that. So I threw that out there. I like these trees a lot. It feels like I'm in a real place. This is the archipelago kind of area. Greek islands area. snow off of that area. That's something I have to change. Don't want to fall maneuvers. Wow, this is maybe not the way I want to go. Alright, I give up. walls of creation. Still pretty dark. I'm not really seeing it as blue. Somewhere there's a tiny error, but it's pretty good so far. Alright. Take it easy, viewer. There were 5 or 6 of you at some point, so that's cool. Peace.